Hello and welcome back to the Aaron Werner podcast on iCode Media. And Cory, welcome back. So it's been fun going on this journey with you, and appreciate you making time to come back this third time.
Hey, thank you for while I stick my earpieces in at the exact same time. When Aaron is ready to go, it's rocket ship time. He was like, "Hey, you ready to go on air?" And I'm like pulling my earpiece in, and I'm like, "Wait a second, we're on stage, man."
So for those who haven't had the pleasure of being a guest, and I would love to welcome you, reach out and we'll chat. But when we get on before we record, we get into some really cool conversations, and the whole time I'm just thinking, this has to be recorded. This has to be recorded. And so finally it hits a point where I just pull the plug and say, no, we're going to start recording, because round two is never as good as the first round.
It's so true.
So excited to have you back on this journey. If you haven't listened to the first or second conversation that Cory and I have had in this little series, I'll link them in the notes below. You definitely don't need to listen to those before you listen to this, but I think it'll help with the whole journey and the full context. What we're really talking about from a 40,000 foot view is how we're incorporating technology, specifically AI, into our businesses, but really keeping people front and center, because at the end of the day, we're a people business. We work with people, we employ people, we take care of people. And so how do we use the technology at hand to help us do that better, help our teams do that better, not to replace them, but to just enhance the care we're giving to our patients, enhance the business acumen that we have, so we're running better, more efficient, profitable businesses and taking better clinical care of our patients. And then Cory, something that came up and sparked a thought when I was on a call actually with some of your team TEE members over at Team earlier today, is that and it made me realize historically I've done a really good job of paying people to be busy. I wanted them to work hard for 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week, and I paid them for the time that they were employed for me, not necessarily for the outcomes I was generating from them. And within that, I certainly was hoping to develop them, drive them, invest in them so that we would get a bigger outcome. But at the end of the day, the biggest measurable that we had was what time did you clock in and what time did you clock out? And hopefully in there you clocked out for an hour for lunch as well, because you got to eat. And I think with in our discussions, what we're talking about is not just keeping people busy, but making them more productive and efficient, and so that we can have more time to invest back in them, so they can become more productive and efficient. And quite frankly, more satisfied with their jobs too. So it's not just a job; it's a role, it's a project, it's a purpose that they can participate in. So what are your thoughts on that historical, it sounds silly saying it out loud, but really I was paying for busyness.
I mean, but that's that's the hamster wheel we've always been in. But then I know you love sports, I love sports, but then you think about sports, no one gets paid for, how many dribbles did you take? Or how much on-court time? It's, did you help the team win the game? But it's hard to track all of the metrics in the business side of optometry. So we're just like, hey, if I have a butt in the chair during this time and they're good and they're trained correctly, they can hopefully get these jobs done. But then the incentive is busyness instead of the incentive is value. Mm-hmm. And if people, and this is what, and sometimes the greed of corruption leads this in the wrong way. I'm a free market capitalism believer, not as the ideal, but I think it's somewhat close, unless it's corrupted, best scenario. But I'm like, if people can provide more value, going back to sports, they get paid more. Michael Jordan has made considerably more than your average. I knew not to bring up other players as I caught myself last time. Okay. We've done this now where I know what players to, bring up to really get the right analogy for you. But they win more. And so what we need to do with our practices is says, what creates a win? Because if you deliver better clinical care, drive more profit and drive more revenue, and they're driving more value, that rising tide can actually raise both boats. And we live in a world in America right now where we think we need to rob Peter to pay Paul, that we're eliminating staff. Well, what if we're empowering them, where we have fewer staff who get done more, and the practice is more profitable and driving more revenue? Instead of this fear-based, oh, I'm taking something away from you to drive more profitability up here. But if both people are winning, they're more engaged, they show up better, they give more, they work better in those harder times. And so how do we create that winning practice from the get-go? What actually matters in the roles that we're hiring so that we're not sitting, and no one's intentionally sitting, but that we're doing and creating value that actually creates good patient experiences.
100%. And to bring it as a non-sports analogy, right, if I take my car to get serviced, I don't particularly care how much time he spends on the car. In fact, I want it done quicker. I just want it done right. And there's a value for that time. I may actually pay more money to get the job done quicker, as long as I know it's getting done right. And so what I'm paying for ultimately as the customer and consumer is competency. I want it done well, right? And that ties in with sports too. I want a baseball player that can field a ground ball to shortstop and make the throw to first. But I want him to do it every time. I want the consistency. So I don't want just the competency. I want the consistency for the repeated experience. And if I find as a customer auto repair shop that's competent and consistent, I'm going to go back because I know that my expectations are going to get met. If I find the right coffee shop, we all have our favorite, quick diner to go into to get food at or whatever the case may be, because I know the experience and I know that the people there are competent and they're consistent. And oftentimes I'll end up paying more because I know that I'm going to get that better experience. And time is a huge value in there. If it's going to take me longer, it's going to decrease the value typically, which I find funny for our businesses, because if I ever walk into my lab where my opticians are sitting and my technicians, and they're sitting playing Candy Crush on their phones, they would never do this, but hypothetically speaking, my first thought is, you lazy bum, what are you doing? Not, hey, you were so good and got all your work done.
I feel the same way, and I hate it because you're a sports guy. I agree with your, I'm buying my time back when I'm out. But then I'll have to read about this after. We're going to have to do another series. But it is so interesting to then look at the incentives, because what we look at in other cases makes a ton of sense. You're paying for your time back and you're paying to get the job done. But then within the American work environment and the 40-hour-a-week, 8-hour-a-day structure, there is some misaligned incentives. Workers don't even want to be more efficient sometimes because they're afraid that could claw back their hours. That could make their full-time job part-time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fascinating structure that it's two vastly different worlds, and you can go out there, and I feel the same way as your own statement. And so I'll have to go read about how that shifted in the American workforce, because I have no clue how, but I think it's actually something we need to work on bucking the trend on myself, but it would be so interesting to know where and why it comes to.
Well, what's interesting is I think it's because we look at what we go where we focus. When I was learning to go mountain bike downhill, which I never got good at, but my brother-in-law raced at it. He always said, don't look at what you don't want to hit, look at where you want to go. My problem was I kept looking at the tree and then I hit the tree. So look where you want to go, or you're going to go where you focus. So if we're looking at time, then that's what I'm going to focus on. How much time, if I'm paying by time, right? The constant factor is time. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. Now, on the flip side, with Mariana, my team TE member that keeps my life organized, I'm not focused on time because I'm not paying her on an hourly rate, right? Which is what I love about team. It's set up so I'm working with team. I have Mariana, and I've told her multiple times, here's the work I need to get done this week. I don't care if you take however long you need to take to do it, but if you can get it done in half of whatever that budgeted time is, go spend the rest of the time at the beach. Right? Because I'm paying for the work to get done, and I'm paying for you to help me do that work because it's time coming off of my plate. So I'm already won if you're getting the work done. If you can be much more efficient at it than me, more power to you, right? And she's good enough. We've had the talk to say, hey, I got this done, what else can I help you with? So she's adding more value back into it. And I appreciate that conversation. But just because it takes me 2 hours to figure out a spreadsheet and she can do it in 30 minutes doesn't mean that she's now wasted an hour and a half of her time, right? It means that she's more efficient and more productive and can help me. And I've got that 2 hours back that I would have spent on it to focus on something else. So I really think that whole idea of buy back your time, and I'll give Dan Martell credit for it from the book, but what can I have somebody else do that's much better at it? And how do I work with them to do so? In my personal life, right? I don't change my oil anymore. I don't do a lot of things that I could do just because I can be more productive. But it's funny that hasn't yet transferred over into the business sense.
I literally typed it in. There's a couple interesting precedences on like the legal side of employment is not considered an outcome. It's considered by hours. So from like a legal, when we say we employ someone, you employ someone full-time, part-time. So just a lot of the original precedences. Independent contractors are paid on outcomes. Employees are paid more on a fixed employment time of scale. And from an economics perspective, the idea of pricing comes from being able to understand the units of time that were put into it. So it's just like some historical things. And then that's just the way we were trained. But what's cool about this is then being able to go back to say what actually matters, what needs to get done within my practice to make me and my patients and my team successful.
I got it. I appreciate that, because ultimately that's what we should be paying on the outcome. And in some areas of our life we do. When I needed a deck rebuilt, I paid for the deck. I didn't pay for how long he was here. I paid for the deck. And so some things we pay for, for the outcome, and some we pay for time. So, and I think it would be tough to shift our entire world, away from an outcome base. And in some regards, we've structured it. That's kind of how I pay my doctors, very much outcome based. They have a base salary, but then they're paid on receipts collected. So outcome based, and they can control their own salaries and whatnot. But taking this concept, because I don't want to beat this too much, but how do we use the technologies, specifically the AI tools that we've been talking about, to improve the work that we have? So if I've got somebody for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, right, and we're not going to shift that model, how do I use these technologies to help them become more than just an optician, a technician, a front desk person that answers the phone? How do I help them develop professionally, and how do I help them get more satisfaction out of what they're doing at work?
I was talking to Alan Chung, who I know is a good friend of yours from Focal Optometry. I think he's in San Diego recently, and he mentioned something, and it makes sense when I say it, but it was profound in the moment of, in optometry, we look at training, especially around like the business side, as like something that's done as a one-hit wonder. And we then think, oh, they're trained. But let's go back to like to become a master at something, you really need 10,000 hours of practice and experience. And that's what makes you a great doctor. But we look at 40 hours or 60 hours making someone competent in the front. And so what we have been focusing on, and AI has given some incredible adaptations, is when someone goes through a course on the training side, you've got your major EHRs, you've got your major phone systems, you have your major tasks. We then, before letting them just take a quiz as they normally would, that's like taking a quiz and getting your driver's license, or going out onto the streets and showing that you can parallel park, that you can obey the speed limit with someone there, saying you are now proven to be competent. And what we have been able to do, and we're continuing to roll out, is make our training focused on when we then say, you've now gone through your courses on crystal. Are you competent? And if you're not competent, we're going to go back, figure out where you're not, and not let you go past go. Because the real reason people go through training is not to check the box. They go through training to be competent so that when they go on the phones, they're ready to go.
I like that. And I think there's different levels of competency too, right? There's a base level of, can you answer the phone politely? And then there's a higher level of competency where, yeah, you've checked off the basic box, but now can you, solve problems? Let's use your driving analogy, right? 16-year-old, you're competent enough to drive on the freeway.
But you're both hands on the wheel, shaking, going to school the first day.
But in the state of California, you're not competent enough to drive your friends yet, because you get your friends in the car and they're going to start arguing over what's on the radio and joking around in the back, and that's too many distractions. So now we've exceeded your competency given the extra stressors put on you. By the time you get into a higher level and you're driving professionally, whether you're a peace officer or a delivery person, right? Much more competent individual because of the experience, and my guess is they've gone through additional trainings on how to operate that vehicle that they're operating beyond getting from point A to point B.
You nailed it right on the head. We look at training as, especially in the front, as done once, and then you just have real world practice. What Alan and you and others have helped us realize is education, continued education, learning, develop, whatever we want to call it, is endless. And so what we've been able to now build and start deploying is where then after 30 days of taking that original competency check on, do you understand how to schedule a new patient? Well, great, let's throw them 30 days in a slightly harder scenario. And 30 days beyond that, let's throw them a different scenario. One time we're going to have a lady who mumbles. The next time we're going to have a super angry dad. The time after that, we're going to have someone who's very frugal and cautious. And so as we then keep our palate wet, as we practice more, it keeps us fresh and keeps that coaching that we reviewed last time to actually be relevant on, are we continuously improving and keeping ourselves competent?
I think that's super cool, especially from the angle of, as a staff person, an employed person, I want to know the work that I do matters, and I want to know that the company I work for is interested in me becoming better. Now, there's a whole lot of me that has to show up, but I want them interested in me becoming better too. There's as an employer, I always want the paradigm to shift where I'm pushing them a little bit harder than they want to go, right? I never want an employee to want to go beyond where I'm willing to take them, because that means they've outgrown me. That means I'm not doing my job, what I see as my role, to develop people and develop them. So I always want to push them just a little bit further than where they may be ready to go or they may want to go, just waiting for them to take those steps. And so I like the idea of a lot of this continued education, this continued professional development, increased competency, however we want to call it.
And that's what AI is allowing us to do. Instead of just having these one-track checkboxes, we can actually have a call. We use a technology called 11 Labs, which allows, for the most part, AI voices that can sound pretty similar. I mean, I have 11 Labs on my cell phone here. Here's what's crazy is, I'll pull it up here. When we have voiceovers, I shouldn't expose this, but I'll happily expose myself here. We then have the marketing team just puts in the script that they want, but they have an agent called Cory Pinegar. And it's my voice of 200 hours of recordings that they've taken, but you can just put in the text and it sounds like me.
That's
because
crazy.
They've taken 200 hours of my podcasting, webinars, internal recordings. And so now we can deploy a real call to a team member where they're having to schedule, but then actually get the information into the HR, where there's a real sandbox. But you can do the same with a claim. You just got this denied claim back. What do you do? Mm-hmm. And that adaptability is what is allowing us, because before there was no way to live role play without real humans. And so now, as we have the ability to throw different curveballs at different times and then give people that live feedback, we can take the transcript, put it into those coaching tools, and actually say, here's what you're doing killer at. Great job. And here's that one thing that's going to move the needle the most.
Yep. No, I think that's huge. One of my favorite things, and I'm clearly am a glutton for punishment because nobody else will ever say this. I love role playing. But like role playing at work for practice, not cosplay, go down and that kind of role playing. I would be really bad at that. But role playing scenarios at work, because it's difficult
and it's awkward,
it sucks,
and it makes
and
people
it's
nervous.
Horrible. But I love it because I love getting better. I was eavesdropping in on a conversation my daughter was having. So her flag football team has virtual practices weekly. And they just happen to be when we're in the car driving her home from a different practice. So I get to listen in sometimes. And what I love about this team is they look at personal development in addition to just sports development. And I don't know what the topic specifically was for this night, but one of the questions that they asked, and they make all the girls answer, was, why is it important that you have support and correction? So why are support and correction important? And I was really impressed by the answers, and I desperately wanted to give mine. I didn't. But I think you have to have that safety net of trust to know somebody cares about you and wants you to do better, but you have to have the correction to do it. And sometimes it's self-correction. Sometimes it's a third-party person telling you what to do better, but you can only do that through role play and professionally. But it's weird because sometimes the role play scenarios are really dumb. We don't want to push too hard on each other. I don't want to make you feel bad. So I tend to back off when I'm role playing with somebody. But it's neat to be able to have now an AI agent that can role play a real scenario and can respond to the answers I'm giving, but then give me feedback at the end about where I could have done better.
And that's what I think people right now are always looking at. Where does AI go to the front lines? And AI does belong in the front lines in some areas, but AI is a tool also for the back lines of enabling, training, certifying, helping people get coaching. Like there's so many use cases. And when we hear AI right now, we think about AI going on the phones. And we're like, oh, I want my patients to know there's humans there. And I like that. But what I want people to understand is there's so many use cases that make your team better. And you create that culture of feedback, coaching, role playing. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. But if we really are here to grow as a team and win as a team, we've got to be uncomfortable. It starts with showing that we care about you. But if we really care about you, we're also going to say, here's how we can grow you.
The Myopia Collective. CooperVision and the AOA have partnered in a groundbreaking initiative to change the way optometrists in the U.S. treat children with myopia. The purpose of the Myopia Collective is to rally the profession of optometry and its allies to interrupt the status quo and elevate the new standard of care for children with myopia. Every individual is encouraged to become a member of the collective. By joining, you commit to taking action to help slow the progression of myopia in children. You'll receive updates and information about the collective and its work in the fight against myopia, gain access to educational opportunities and resources offered by the collective, and hear from change agents, the ambassador optometrists selected to serve as advocates for community and policy change that facilitates the mission of the collective. Scan the QR code or click on the link in the show notes to join the collective today. In the past, our focus revolved around prescribing MacuHealth or MacuHealth Plus to patients at risk of macular degeneration, while also recommending it to collegiate and professional athletes for enhanced contrast sensitivity in sports performance. However, this year's introduction of the Life Meter has been a game changer. The Life Meter revealed a concerning truth. Many of my patients have alarmingly low skin carotenoid levels, indicating potential deficiencies in essential body tissues like the retina and brain. Supported by over 30 peer-reviewed publications, Life Meter's accuracy, consistency, and effectiveness has been demonstrated across 2,000 subjects with diverse backgrounds. With this newfound insight, I can now have meaningful conversations about carotenoid levels with all of my patients, even those who may seem outwardly healthy. To learn more about this empowering technology, feel free to contact your MacuHealth representative or click on the link in the show notes. Together, let's optimize patient care and elevate their well-being. We all know how important good vision is, but more than 1 billion people worldwide still lack access to the eye care they need. So join me in supporting Optometry Giving Sight's World Sight Day Challenge, which runs from September 1st through October 31st. You can donate, create a fundraiser, or dedicate a day's exams fees. Visit givingsight.org/WSDC or click on the link in the show notes and help give the gift of sight. Okay, that makes sense. It's interesting you brought up the AI answering the phones. I kind of look at this, and correct me if you see it differently. My bank has ATMs inside the bank. And often when I'm going into the bank, it's to do banking business, so I need to talk to somebody to help me. But sometimes it's just to make a quick deposit or pull out some cash. I don't want to wait in a 20-person line just to make a deposit or pull out cash. And so that's where I can go work on the automated system that'll get me in and out really quick. But I also have that human element when I do need help and go through. And I think that when as we develop, that's what I think we're going to start seeing is there's a quick path for some really quick answers. I don't need to talk to a person in my office to make a contact lens order. I shouldn't need to talk to a person to make an appointment. I shouldn't need to
confirm our appointment at 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Right? Some real things. But hey, I've got a question about medications. I should be really quick to get to a live person who can help me. And I think that's where we're seeing a whole lot of work done. I don't think it's where it needs to be yet, but I think those are the efficiencies that are going to help, right? I would love it at some point to have an AI tool that helps triage a phone call so I know whether to get woken up at 11:30 at night, well after my bedtime of 8:45. If it's an emergency, I'm more than happy to jump up and address it. But if it's, hey, I think I need to order more contacts, that's not a reason my phone should ring that late, right? So how do we work through all those too?
I'm excited too. It's kind of what you're mentioning there, where technology, when we started on our first of the miniseries, we talked about people look at AI or software, or people look at service or humans. And really, as we've always said, it's a blend of all of them. I think where AI and technology gets really cool is where we build into our workflow the human in the loop. So then it can quickly recognize, hey, this is the type of call at our practice that goes to a human. Oh, you want to confirm your appointment at 2 p.m. or you want to just pay a bill? We'll text you a link. And so that discernment to then know where the routing should go, that kind of human in the loop concept. And then the ability for our patients to choose, hey, I just want to confirm something. I'm cool talking to AI, or I would really prefer to talk to a human being here. I think those are the two routes that we're going to head down of a more holistic solution. Right now, they're very different and there's nothing more continuous, and I'm excited for it to be more continuous for the benefit of the patient. And then the other choice that I think is actually going to become a huge driver is just someone saying, I want a human. And that differentiates your practice. That's not I'm needy. When you can then deliver that service, you're meeting the market at its needs.
Mm-hmm. And what you said there for me is key is choice, right? I'm not being forced. It's not you have to go this path or that path. I can provide all the different solutions that you need. And my guess today, if we look, there's probably a little bit of a generational gap where some like to deal more with an in-person person and some would prefer not to talk to a person ever because they're more comfortable with technology. But as it becomes more ubiquitous, we're going to start seeing a shift to efficiencies where appropriate.
See, we don't know where it will be. I think we'll see a shift this way. And just like all, not bubbles, but, the economy and innovation is just a seesaw back and forth. I spend too much time on Instagram, and I look at the people of my generation and below that are getting sick of the AI slop. They just want the real photo of their friends. And so I think the deeply embedded desire to have human connection in each of us as human beings is very deep. Now, some of us may struggle in being shy or going out and about, but we live in healthcare here, and healthcare is a very anxiety-inducing activity for many people. So when you can have that human connection and empathy, I believe that there is great place for automation. The ATM and the bank teller theory and the choice, you're not routed away. You're just like, hey, we've got both options. What would you choose? I think is going to be the way of the future, where then people have optionality. If I need $40, I don't need to talk to a teller. It's silly. And I think that's what we will look at in the future, just like you laughed there. When we confirm an appointment or schedule a simple exam for tomorrow morning, no need. But that human desire, I think, is so deeply embedded within us. And watching how the slop of AI imagery is getting pushed against today, I only think will grow as we see it pushed to the front lines of customer service.
And I think the one thing AI hasn't figured out yet is the EQ, right? The emotion, the empathy. And no matter how many times I tell Claude or Chat to stop telling me I'm right or stop trying to appease me, it doesn't know how to. And that doesn't necessarily mean on bad things too, but on good things, right? You need to have that emotional human connection, not even person to person physically, but just, knowing I'm talking to a live individual on the other end of the phone. But I do think the technology, and you guys have tapped onto this, especially through Team, of how to create more efficiency to make a human do the work they're doing quicker, right? How to train more efficiently, how to train more effectively so that me on the outcome is a much better outcome, and a more competent, consistent product is a me, right? With the things that you can't train, all the EQ type of things. Some of the tools that you've created in to just help book my travel better, help do little things, right? That's the kind of stuff that doesn't have a bad day and a brain slip because it's built in. And so the parts of me that aren't always the best, that don't always show up the best, and I'm using me hypothetically because I always show up wonderful, right? But you get what I'm saying. That doesn't have to deal with having a bad day, are going to automatically be there so that the human behind it can make the right decision, pull the right levers, book the right flights, so that the outcome is exactly what it needs to be.
And as we talked about last time, if humans help guide the start of technology and AI, they govern the outcome, and then they audit what comes out, they can move faster. But their expertise is still needed to say, why are we flying Aaron this way around the globe instead of that way around the globe? Like, there are things that can be wrong. And so as we train people, not just on the tasks and technologies, but then create training on how to use these toolings to actually use them to be efficient, to provide value, to put points on the board. It makes a big difference.
It does. We've talked a lot about efficiency and competency. Are you tracking the efficiency, the time saved, or I guess better, how are you tracking? I'm assuming it's time saved, but the efficiency and the productivity of specifically your team, TEM members who support us in the practice?
Yeah, so practices, when we got early into providing remote workers in optometry, people were like, oh, it's an interesting idea. And then you'd take it to an office manager and they would be like, ain't no way in hell we're doing this. Like, this is anti-American. You're going to take, and people have now realized, like, wait, these people empower our front desk. But you can look down the hall and you can see your front desk team. So when I say, hey, Aaron, how's your front desk? You can say, they're good. But there's not as much visibility on your remote workers. So what we've spent a lot of time building, and I can actually share it here because I think it would be relevant, and this is the newer version that we are just about to go ahead and launch.
Cool.
Is dashboards that then help you easily understand the value that your remote team is bringing. And it's all built around simply understanding the work, not from here's how long they sat in their chair, but the value that is being brought, going back to that original conversation, so that people can see, wow, Aaron is a great part of our team.
That's cool. So if I'm looking here, we'll talk through if you haven't, you're not on the video watching YouTube on this. So this is Dr. Patel's office, and they have 3 team remote virtual team members, and so they've booked about $30,000 in revenue, which I'm assuming, Cory, you're getting from my revenue per exam, and this is how many exams they've booked.
And that is custom by each practice. So we're not using some blanket multiplier. Practices go in and say, hey, what's your average revenue per exam? And then that is what actually drives that revenue booked understanding.
Okay. So these three individuals who are part of my office team, but just we're working remotely, have booked about $300,000 in revenue. They've bought back, and I love this number, 1,560 hours in time. That is time not used by in-person people in my office. So not me, not any of my in-person team members. So that's quite a few hours.
And different people come to us for different reasons. Some may need to increase revenue. Some may need to buy their time back. Dan Martell. And so these are the major key areas we believe our clients come to us looking for help, driving down costs, driving up revenue, or buying time back because their team or themselves are overwhelmed. And then I'm not sure if you've ever done anything like, have you read Gina Wickman's traction book?
Yeah.
So what you see on the scorecard here is kind of some premised theory from EOS where it says, all right, you now have a job to be done. You have a role, and Cory or Aaron is in this role. What are the KPIs that actually matter if Cory's doing his job well? And so if we're hiring someone to pick up the phones, what really matters? How many patients do we book? How many new patients do we book? How many existing patients do we book? And so as you can see here, we have the overall scorecard that's reported on, and it's related to the practice's goals. So I'll go down here in our dashboard here just to show people. But when you onboard, you then get to select what's the average conversion rate or number of new patients you want scheduled a week. These goals up at the top of the board here are not a goal where we assign them. Team is based on the premise of taking great people, training them really good, empowering them with technology, and getting them in your practice so they can represent you and talk to your patients and be knowledgeable of it. So everything that you see here is based on the tasks that you hired these team members to do, and then the goals that actually would make that team member successful and help you win games more often.
And that's super cool, especially when you can track. And what I love about this, and Cory here has a 82 patients scheduled out of 85 opportunities, which is a pretty darn good close rate. My guess is Cory is really, really good on the phone. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to get the commitment from them, how to get the scheduling.
And I've got a clarification just because I don't want people to think that we
That's not you.
I wish this was me, but that's actually the 85 that you see on the right-hand side is the goal of new patients or patients scheduled.
Goal of new patients, okay.
So then instead of saying, here is your conversion rate, because as you and I both know, no one's scheduling 82 out of 85.
I was going to say, can I hire him? I don't know whose office he's at.
We got Maria below at 96 over 90.
Yeah.
But why I think this is important is then the practice is setting that goal. What is success? And then it's showing, you set the goal of 85 patients scheduled. From inbound, Cory's got 63 people scheduled this month. We're above our practice's goal, your practice's goal. But we're below target on we wanted to, from recall reactivation, schedule 25 patients. Well, we're only at 19.
Got it.
And so you can see the overall scorecard here, but you could go then drive into Anna or Maria and actually look at those major numbers below that top line scorecard. But instead of then saying we're going to over provide statistics, what's the real number that actually moves the needle the most? And then we're going to provide a few things below it. But the team members see this exact same thing. So every single day, When they're providing their work, they know where they're benchmarking. And when performance is reported and measured, performance takes a significant step forward.
Yep.
I see that smile there. You know it.
Oh, I've said that quote many times. Yep, no, absolutely. It's and when everybody is playing off the same playbook, and quite frankly, when everybody knows what good looks like and what success looks like,
and most people in practices don't.
Mm-hmm.
And our goal, you said something interesting when we were getting on. Practices are scared, and not practices are scared. This is a new concept. And so our goal of what we have here is to make onboarding easy. When you come on, you're not saying, hey, Aaron, I've got to have you write out this 12-page job description. The first question you get is, what jobs need to be done? Inbound phone calls and messaging, claim submission, scribing. All right, well, based on what you told us around those tasks, what is success? Define these things, and that's what builds your dashboard. But if we can guide practices through, people need to be profitable in the new environment of optometry, need to be embracing the concept of remote work. It's scary, it's new. Our goal is to actually be a guide where they can see the value, but even as they get started, it doesn't feel complex and overwhelming.
I like that. And which is really helpful for me because it's, I can look at everything as a new opportunity and new adventure, or I can look at it as scary because it's constantly changing. And sometimes it's a mixture of both, if I'm being perfectly honest for myself. I still crack up when my kids get like 3 of us on a FaceTime call together, because that was what I watched on the Jetsons as a kid growing up. And here I am living in real life. It's a trip, and I don't think I'm that old. So it's all this technology stuff that made me sound old. But it's new. Is it worth diving into? Do I feel overwhelmed sometimes? Absolutely, on things. And sometimes I just want to take care of patients. I just want to do my job, and I don't want to have to learn all these other things. But a little bit of work on my end, a little bit of work on your end, you guys helping us and choosing the right partners to work with, really helps me get back to enjoying what I like the most.
Signed up to do. And
yep.
Let's just cut to the brass tacks. Where do practices make money? Practices make money when doctors are practicing. So if we can make the running of the business more consistent, that you talked about, and easier, well, guess what? You have less burnout, but at the same time, you have more time in the back because the front is running. You already know that my team knows the goals. Every day, Cory logs into that dashboard. He sees where he's benchmarking. I don't have to go and say, Aaron, where are your numbers this month? Let's sit down. But that 30 minutes takes away from your check-in. And so if we can make things easier, people can go back to what actually moves the needle professionally in a clinical standpoint, and actually from a revenue and profit standpoint. Every time out of the operatory, the clinic, the exam lane is time that people get pulled away from producing.
Yep. And I'll take it one step further. The practice makes money, not just when the doctor is practicing doctoring, but when the outcome from my job, because when I'm done seeing the patient, I have to not only take care of the patient, but I have to make sure my documentation and my coding are done correctly so that I can get paid by the third party entity that's going to pay me most often. But having steps in between there so I don't have to become an expert at everywhere in this revenue cycle management wheel. I can focus on the area that I'm the expert in, which is in the exam lane. My opticians can focus on being the experts where they are. I can have experts answering the phone that are going to book the appointments and schedule appropriately so I have the right mix of flow coming in the door and being able to see them. I'm going to jump all out of order in this wheel now, but I can have the right individuals submitting the claims appropriately the first time. And so we don't get denials, which means I get paid the max and I get paid quicker, right? Who can help me fix any of my errors if I'm coding things inappropriately so that I get better, they get better, right? That's that whole revenue cycle wheel where the money comes from. If I start trying to answer phones or be an optician or do the medical billing, we're going to have some problems because I'm not an expert in those areas.
It's miserable where if you feel like you have to play every position on the court in a full-time manner, There's a theory in business which I to some degree understand, but in some degree almost disagree with, where it's like, oh, you want to hire someone who's 80% as good as you. What if you hired someone who's better than you? Like, I'm not, if I were the accountant for team, we might as well just, head over to the bankruptcy court. It's just not, I don't have passion for it. We have a team of accountants. They are damn good. I look at our strategy team, our legal team. One of our in-house lawyers, she read a 90-page agreement top to bottom the other day. You probably couldn't pay me with a gun to my head to have the focus to do that. And so what if we actually start building a team of experts where we each play our position really well? There's so much burnout in our field right now because the doctor and the owner is playing every other position beyond their full-time one. And it really starts with saying, I'm going to play with a team of experts and I don't even get in their lane because I would screw it up.
Yep. Nope, I agree. I think that, specialization is is there for a reason. A jack of all trades is great, and a handyman is helpful. But at the end of the day, I don't want a handyman building my house. I want a carpenter who oversees the full project, a construction manager building the house, and a plumber doing the plumbing, an electrician doing the electrical, a framer doing the framing, and all the above. Just like I want the right people fielding the right positions on my baseball team. I don't need a pitcher trying to catch and play first base. It doesn't work that way. And so when you have the right people playing in the right spots, you get the outcomes you want.
I think your house analogy is actually really cool. If you took a handyman and built your house, yes, it is probably cheaper your first couple months. Then something's going to break because it wasn't built right, or it wasn't up to fire code. So you're going to have to rip up your carpet. And so ultimately, I think when we don't have experts in those seats, the silent killer is, yes, it may be cost effective. But if you really have the experts, you pay a little bit more now, but the longevity or the amortization of cost of that house is actually way less because you've got the right people to do it up front. And I think we all need to do that with our business for our own mental health, but for also then having the team where we can stick in our lanes.
100%. There's it's funny. I remember in high school, in San Diego State undergrad, and even at going to school in Chicago at ICO, I always wanted that North Face fleece jacket. But something in my head said there's no way you're spending almost $300 on a North Face fleece jacket. That is the dumbest thing ever. It's a waste of money. You're never going to do it. I'll bet you I spent $1,000 buying imitation jackets that weren't quite what I wanted until I finally bought the North Face jacket. Right.
And do you still have it now?
And I still have it now, and it's about 18 years old. So had I just spent the money to begin with, I would have never wasted all the extra money trying to then save money. And so that keeping things together, trying to cut costs and trying to do it a cheaper way up front has consistently proven to me over time that that's not the way it works. Right. And I'm like, if I can't afford something, I can't afford something. But I also think that I'm being short-sighted sometimes, and this is the lesson that I learned on just not making the sacrifice, if you will, up front to get what I needed, because the long-term investment is completely worth it. And I see that here, right? How do I partner with people? It might change the way I'm thinking a little bit, but how do I engage with the right partners? Maybe do business slightly differently than I have in the past, but get a much better outcome, and get a better outcome for not just me and not just the business as an entity itself, but for the people that work in the business. Because now I can take things, and what we have done, because we have 3 remote team members within Werner Optometry, we've outsourced the things that the team internally doesn't like to do. Nobody likes doing prior authorizations, right? Except for Vina. She's great at them. Right. So Vina gets the prior auths. Nobody likes doing recalls. Right. But Chai is really darn good at recalls. And so we're able to offload the work that the in-person people don't like to do to people that like to do them, and they can be successful. with them. And then our in-person team can focus on the work they do well. And ultimately, we're giving a much better experience and a much better product.
Fully agree. I met Leslie Gallagher's one of her main business team members one time, and she came up and she said, if I ever lost my remote team member, I would cut off my finger. And that was the first time years ago I saw a staff member go to bat for their support. Now people are realizing, just like technology, you can use these tools to elevate and delegate your team, and that's exactly what you're doing.
Yep. No, 100%. Well, Cory, this has been fun. I really appreciate helping walk along this journey because you use the word fear. I think if we're honest with ourselves, there's a little bit of that, as we're looking at what the future is. I think looking in the future has always been fearful, right? Which is why we've, historically have paid the seers and the fortune tellers to try to give us a light in that dark future. But I look at you and I think that this conversation has really helped me shine some light onto what's potential today and what is going to be potential tomorrow for the practice. And it's pretty darn exciting.
Even for me, I spend a lot of time thinking about the future, but I don't know. There's times that I'm scared. I have fear about the future, but I do know the people who make it out go out there and tinker and test and tinker and test, and they eventually find it. And so our goal is to help practices with great training, proper tooling, safe tooling, to go out there and iterate, innovate, to do things different. And then as we just continue to tinker and test together, we eventually find what's right.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to connecting more. I appreciate all you do for us in the industry, for our patients, and then what you've done for me personally. I still remember the first conversation I had with Werner and Cory. Shoot, it's probably been 3 years ago now. We talked about buying back your time, and I yelled at her and said that I can't ever unsee what I've seen and unlearn what I've learned now. And it's taken me down a whole fun path that you've been a big part of. So thank you.
Thank you.